Hi there, I'm going to do something a little bit different today. It's really hot today, so I thought I would just do quite a slow, almost like a restorative cooling session. So quite hard to focus when it's a slow practice sometimes. So just if you find it difficult, just notice what goes on for you and see if you can bring yourself back into the body at any time if you find that you've wandered off. As always, just do what works for you. Just because it's slow doesn't mean necessarily that it's easy mentally, as we were just saying, but also it can be quite tough physically. So see where you need to be, what you need to do to keep yourself happy and well today. Definitely would suggest finding a nice cool space for your practice. You could maybe even do it outside in the shade or something. I've got a window open here and yeah, the sun's gone off this room now, so it's nice. And definitely have cushions, bolsters, whatever you might have to hand, because it's going to be really nice to let the body just feel totally supported today. So start sitting. You can sit however you like. I sometimes quite like to just sit with my legs just slightly wide and my knees bent, and I feel like I can get super upright in the spine, and then hands just wherever you want them. I'm going to take mine into a mudra, but really I'm not too fussed where you start, so long as you're comfortable and it's somewhere you can just sit for a few moments, check in and go for it. So once you've found your comfortable seat, just shut down the eyes. Starting with a check-in, what's going on for you in the body today? And if you need to adjust your seat, feel free, it's worth getting it right for you today. Notice if you're holding on to anything that you don't need. Notice if your mind is quite busy or not. And if it is, just bring yourself back to the breath. And notice what your experience of breathing is. And seeing whether you can find just a little bit more steadiness, a little bit more smoothness in your breath. And just bringing to your mind your spine. That normally makes us just rise up a little bit more and sit with a little bit more height. Let's just imagine the shape of your spine, everything running top to bottom. And imagine as you breathe in, the breath comes out from the central column of your body, so from the spine towards the edges of your skin. And as you breathe out, the breath recedes back towards that central column of the body. So as if the spine is breathing outwards. So as you breathe in, breath comes out from the spine to the edges, to the skin. And as you breathe out, the breath goes back to the center. If that's not working for you, obviously just nice steady breaths are lovely. Notice if that's thrown anything up for you, whether your mind's wandered. Call yourself back. Breathing in, out from the central column, from the spine of the body. And as you breathe out, drawing everything back to the center. And as we have our last few breaths here, seeing if you can slow down your exhale just a little bit more. And then staying seated, staying with our eyes shut, just release from any effort. And observe once again how the breath flows around the body. What's going on for you now? And then release. So before we come down onto our mats, just take any movements here that you feel you might want to have. Sometimes it's nice to have a bit of a stretch, so I'm not too worried what it looks like. You might want to do a bit of a cat-cowy type motion or circle of the shoulders. So a few moments, a few breaths just to explore into you today, what's feeling like a nice way to move. Don't overthink it, just see where your body takes you. Let your body lead you. Maybe you want to take a bit of a forward fold, maybe you want a bit of a back bend, maybe you want to stand up and walk around, it doesn't really matter, just tuning into you. And then when you feel ready, grab your cushion or your bolster, whatever it is, and bring yourself down onto your back. We're going to have the bolster just somewhere nearby to begin with. And we start laying down on our back, so coming down with control. But just before we do actually, when we come down, we're going to try and keep about 90 degrees at the knees. So if we're setting up for a bridge pose or something, we tend to end up with our feet quite close to our hips. We want a little bit more space between feet and hips today. So yeah, about a right angle at the knee, thereabouts. It doesn't have to be too exact, but coming down onto our backs and just hovering there for a moment. And if once you arrive, you feel like the feet aren't really in a comfortable position, of course you can move them. From here, we're just going to lift and resettle the tailbone a couple of times and just see if we can get the lower back really comfortable. And you can keep feet and knees hip distance apart, or you can knock the knees together if that's feeling good for you. And then hands could go on the belly. That's quite a nice securing, grounding place to have them. But given that we are having a bit of a cooling session, that might be a bit hot today. So if you wanted to take them somewhere else, that would be fine. So I'm just going to come on up because I've cut my head off of the video. It feels a bit wrong, but you can stay there. So I'm going to spend a couple of minutes here. You might trace the back of the body down on that. If it's been a busy day, a stressful day, maybe you've been running around, getting a bit overheated, just allowing everything to settle, consciously inviting, grounding, softening, cooling into the body. Allowing that heat of activity, the heat of the lovely weather, heat of any stress, just to give it back to the earth. And while we're here, you might notice any sensations on the skin. There might be a little bit of a cooling breeze. And just check that you are comfortable, your neck's not squashed. Seeing whether you feel like each half of the body is the same, or whether you are noticing anything particular that's different from one side and the other. And you might like to go back to that sense of breathing in from the centre of the body, so inhaling out to the edges and exhaling back to the centre. If that resonated with you, if that's an image that works for you to just help get some ease, some fullness in your breath, then that's great. If not, just breathing in a steady way. And noticing if you are holding anything, if there's anything else you can give into your mat, any stresses that can be invited to fall away in this practice today. I'm going to have about 3 more breaths just in this really simple position. Notice how your experience of this pose has changed. And before we do anything else, you might want to have a bit of free movement once again. Perhaps you want to have a stretch, anything at all that is feeling comfortable before we take another of these slow poses. And when you're ready, so if you're not ready, you can pause me, take as much time as you need, but when you are ready, from this position, we might need that bolster or cushion now. There's different things we can do here. So the simplest is to just bring the bolster to next to kind of the left hip and allow both knees to fall over to the left and take a little bit of a supported twist. Another option is to take the bolster, in fact, between the knees. Can you see that? Hopefully you can. And take a twist like that. Or if you have something else in mind that you want to do, a different way to take this twist. I'm sure you've done twists with me and any yoga teacher ever. So if there's something else calling to you, then feel free to take that now. Once you've got the legs sort of happy, we can try and keep the right shoulder down on the mat, maybe extending that right arm up and back, but being super kind to the body. So if it's not feeling good, if it's not feeling like it's instilling you with ease and calmness, then perhaps just thinking about how to adapt. You might think about sending the tailbone down away from the head. That can sometimes just change the whole experience of the torso in this stretch. And just checking for a feeling of expansiveness across the lungs. Again, you might visualise that breathing out from the central column of the body, or you might not. I should have said as well, this floor is quite hard and I'm beginning to feel that on my head, so if you are in a similar situation, of course you can prop up your head, that's all good. And noticing with each breath what your experience of the pose is, what your experience of this practice is. Where your mind is. And what can be released. Where can we bring a little bit more ease into the body? If anything distracting pops into your mind, you can sometimes just visually put it somewhere else to be collected later. So put it in your study, your office, outside your front door, whatever it is, put it back at work. And see if you can put it somewhere that you can collect it later. It's really noisy here today. I'm so sorry if you're getting a lot of background noise. And again, we're going to spend about 3 more breaths in this position. What do we need to get from this? How can we juice it up for 3 breaths if you want to? Perhaps lean a little bit further into it. And when you are feeling ready, just gently bringing yourself back to centre. If you want, you can just lift and resettle the tailbone a couple more times in the centre. And with control, taking something similar on the other side. Just finding, again, a useful place for you to be. Bodies are not very symmetrical things, so if you feel like you need something clearly different on this side, that's totally fine with me. Do what suits you. And again, if you find that you are distracted, just bringing yourself back to the breath. Noticing the rise and fall of your ribcage. Noticing the feeling of being held and supported by the mat. And again, checking in, what's your experience of this pose? What's your experience of being in your body? How present can you be with the sensations which arise? And again, we'll have about 3 more breaths here. Or of course longer if you fancy. If this is feeling great for you, by all means stay as long as you like. And then when we're done, just releasing the bolster, the cushion. Coming back to centre, finding those 90-degree knees, a constructive rest, and again we can just lift and replace the tailbone a couple of times, so just finding lots of space through the lower back, bringing everything back into symmetry. And if you find that your mind has got busy, we can go back to that sense of just inviting release, inviting that to all wait for later. Taking this space just to be body on a mat, allowing the heat of the day to just dissipate. And from here, not really too worried how you want to get there, but I would encourage you to take your time, do it nice and smoothly. We're going to come over to hands and knees. So taking as much time as you would like to do that. And whenever you arrive there, we'll take a little bit of cat-cow. And as always, you can stick with regular cat-cow, or if you want to spice it up in a particular way, feel free, but try and stay away from anything too heat building, given that we are trying to bring everything down. I'm just going to check the time. Okay, great. So a couple more breaths in this cat-cow. And then from here, we're going to take the supported child's pose. So bring the bolster down the middle of the mat if you have a bolster. If not, stack up your cushions or whatever you need. Knees nice and wide. And even if you have got a bolster, you can go for a bit more padding if you want a bit more height. That's absolutely fine. And sometimes it takes a couple of goes to work out where you're going to feel supported. We don't want to feel squashed through the midsection, but we do want to feel supported. So sometimes it's a case of kind of like moving the bolster around a little bit till you get it right for you. And then you can just drape yourself over it. I don't think you can see. You can have your arms forwards in this sort of position, or of course you can have them kind of cactus. You can send them back if you like. You can have them under the head. So finding a comfortable supported child's pose. And if your head is to one side, that's absolutely great. I will tell you in a couple of minutes and we can switch it to the other side, or of course you can go forehead down if that suits you better. So yeah, taking time to make sure the body feels held. I always think this is a real kind of surrendering pose, so it's perfect for if you have had a busy, hot experience coming into this practice. You can just let that go, give it down to the mat. And if you discover that you are holding anywhere, holding onto anything in the body, see if there's a way to give your body, give yourself a little bit more to this pose. See if you can stay a little bit more present with your practice. your head is to one side, maybe just thinking about slowly, carefully taking it to the other side. If of course you get there and it's not comfortable, feel free to bring it back. And then super slowly, gently using your hands, we're going to bring ourselves back up and get rid of the bolster. And again, just take a moment to find any movements that work for you. So maybe a little bit of a gentle twist, or again, anything that comes to mind. There's no need to overthink anything at all. I'm feeling like I want a bit of a side stretch, but you can take whichever movements you want. And then whenever you are ready, you can think about coming down into the best Shavasana shape for you today. So taking plenty of time to get yourself set up. If you have that bolster to handy, that's a lovely thing to use for Shavasana under the knees or wherever you might want it. So I'll just chat for a moment to let you get set up. So as you find your shape that you need to be in today, start to invite everything to settle and to drop once again. And using these minutes to release whatever can be released today, down to the earth, down to the mat. If you find again that your mind is jumpy, then just giving yourself something to focus on, like those nice cooling, slow exhales, can be really magic for helping us helping to keep us present in the body. So as always, I would invite you to stay for at least 5 minutes if you can. And if you found today's practice quite tough, that's quite normal. It's quite tough to do a slow practice. But hopefully you feel cooled and refreshed and ready for what the rest of the day holds for you. Namaste. Thank you so much.